The Martyrs of Compiègne were the 16 members of the Carmel of Compiègne France. 11 Discalced Carmelite nuns, 3 lay sisters, and 2 externs. The number of Christian martyrs greatly expanded in the early years of the French Revolution. Thousands of Christians were killed by the guillotine. Guillotine is an apparatus designed for efficiently carrying out executions by beheading. The device consists of a tall, upright frame with a weighted and angled blade suspended at the top, as well as by mass deportations, drownings, imprisonments, shootings, mob violence, and sheer butchery. In 1790, the French revolutionary government passed the civil constitution of the clergy, which outlawed religious life. The community of Carmelite sisters at Compiègne, a commune in northern France, 72 kilometers north of Paris, was founded in 1641, a daughter house of the monastery in Amiens. The community grew rapidly, and was renowned for its fervor and fidelity. It was supported by the French court from its beginnings, until interrupted by the French Revolution, which was hostile towards religion and the Catholic Church. Shortly after Bastille Day, on the 4th of August 1790, government officials, with armed guards, interviewed each sister at their convent in Compiègne and forced them to choose between breaking their vows or risking further punishment. They all refused to abandon their lives of obedience, chastity, and poverty. They were allowed to stay at the convent, becoming wards of the state, which entitled them to receive government pensions. The revolutionary government, at the end of 1791, required all clergy to swear a civic oath supporting the civil constitution or risk losing their pensions and becoming destitute. At Easter in 1792, the government plundered churches and interrupted services. It was the last Easter the sisters celebrated at Compiègne. Mother Teresa of St. Augustine, the convent's prioress, suggested to the community that they commit themselves to execution, and offer themselves as a sacrifice for France and for the French Church. The prioress almost escaped execution when she returned to her family's home in Paris in order to care for her widowed mother who was ill. However, she returned to Compiègne 4 days before the execution. All of the sisters were arrested and executed 4 days later. In August 1792, the government ordered all women's monasteries closed. The seizure and removal of the Compiègne convent's furnishings occurred on the 12th of September, and the sisters were forced to leave the convent and re-enter the world on the 14th of September, the end of the cloistered community. Mother Teresa made arrangements for the 20 sisters living in the convent at the time to hide in the city in 4 separate apartments and find civilian clothes for them to wear, since the wearing of habits and religious apparel had been outlawed. They were dependent on the charity of friends, and courageously continued to practice community prayer, despite the government's orders. In 1794, after the terror began, the government searched the sisters' apartments for 2 days. They found letters revealing the crimes against the revolution, which included hostility to the revolution, strong sympathies to the monarchy, and evidence that they continued to live as a community of consecrated Christian women. They also found 2 letters written by the unfortunate Mulot de la Menardira to his cousin, Sister Euphrasia of the Immaculate Conception, containing unfavorable criticisms of the revolution. Mulot was accused of helping them and of being a non-juring priest, even though he was married, and was arrested and imprisoned with the sisters. On the 22nd of June, the sisters and Mulot were arrested and locked up in the former convent of the Visitation, an improvised jail for political prisoners in Compiègne. On the 10th of July 1794, they were transferred to the Conciergerie prison in Paris to await trial. The sisters recanted their civic oath while in prison. During their trial on the 17th of July 1794, in which they received no legal counsel, Sister Mary Henrietta tried to force the prosecutor to define the word fanatic, one of the charges against them. She pretended she did not know what the word meant, thus getting him to admit their fanaticism was due to their religion, which made them criminals and annihilators of public freedom. Mother Teresa claimed full responsibility for the charges of being counter-revolutionaries and religious fanatics, and defended and insisted on the others' innocence. All 16 sisters, along with Mulot, were sentenced to death. At one point, while waiting for the transportation from the Conciergerie to the site of their executions, one of the nuns, Sister St. Louis, after consulting with Mother Teresa, bartered a fur wrap she owned for a cup of chocolate for the sisters to drink from to give them strength after not being able to eat anything all day. There were 26 nights between their arrest and execution. On the night of the 17th of July 1794, the sisters were transported through the streets of Paris in an open cart, a journey that took 2 hours. During that time, they sang hymns of praise, including the Miserere, the Salve Regina, the Evening Vespers, and the Compline. Other sources state that they sang a combination of the Office of the Dead, the Vespers, the Compline, and other shorter texts. Onlookers berated them, yelling insults and throwing things at them. While waiting to be executed, a sympathetic woman from the crowd offered the sisters water, but Sister Mary Henrietta stopped one sister from accepting, insisting that it would break their unity and promising that they would drink when they were in heaven. A crowd gathered, as usual, at the Place du Trône Renversé, now called Place de la Nation, the site of the executions, to watch, but the sisters showed no fear and forgave the guards. The final song the sisters sang was Psalm 116, Laudate Dominum. Sister Constance, a novice, the youngest of the group and the first to die, spontaneously began the chant, but it was cut short by the guillotine blade. Each sister joined her and was silenced in the same way. Before their execution they knelt and chanted the Veni Creator, as at a profession, after which they all renewed aloud the baptismal and religious vows. Sister Charlotte, who at 78 years of age was the oldest sister, walked with a crutch and was unable to stand up and get out of the cart because her hands were tied and the other sisters were unable to help her. Eventually a guard gathered her up in his arms and threw her on the street. She lay face down on the pavement stones, with no signs of life as the crowd protested against the guard's treatment of her. She stirred, lifted up her blood-smeared face, and warmly thanked the guard for not killing her, thereby depriving her of her share in her community's glorious witness for Jesus Christ. Sister Mary Henrietta stood by her prioress until it was her turn to die, helping the 14 other sisters climb the scaffold steps before climbing them herself, and was the second to last to die. Mother Teresa died last. There are no surviving relics of the Martyrs of Compiègne because their heads and bodies were buried, along with 128 other victims executed that day, in a deep, 30 feet square sandpit in the Picpus Cemetery. Their burial site, located in the back of the cemetery, is marked with two large, gravel-covered quadrangles. The heads and torsos of the 1,306 people who were guillotined at the Place de la Nation between the 13th of June and the 27th of July 1794 are buried there. The names, including the 16 martyrs of Compiègne as well as Mulot de la Menardira, are inscribed on marble plaques covering the walls of a nearby church, where prayer is offered continuously. On the day the sisters were killed there were 24 other victims. The Martyrs of Compiègne were beatified on May 27, 1906. They were the first martyrs of the French Revolution to be so recognized by the Holy See. Their feast day is the 17th of July. On February 22, 2022, the Roman Catholic Diocese of Beauvais announced that Pope Francis had accepted the procedure of equivalent canonization for the Martyrs of Compiègne, by which they could be canonized as saints without recognition of a miracle attributed to their intercession.